Dr. Pepper.
No.
10, 2, and 4.
Oh, I was getting, when I first got that, I was getting lots of spam addressed to doctor. What in the world, I got to look old, that's why.
That was a typo when it says put David, you got DR.
No, Darlene Steve there, but I have something else.
Stand, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks for both of you coming tonight. And in case anyone's watching on television, this is probably, and the television's working, so that'd be great. We're gonna move the public hearing down the agenda and take some other items first while our city attorney is on his way here. So we'll start with the mayor's report, and the mayor's report this evening mainly concerns our dedication ceremony that we had yesterday for the Hermann Veterans Memorial Park. It was attended by an estimated crowd of around 500. It could have been more. The aerial photographs really look like there's quite a few people here. It was very well attended. It was, I thought, very well done by the committee. I can't explain how impressive it is for a committee of 6 people, and I think Bruce is on the committee. So for a committee of 6 people to do this work, the amount of work they did, developing the blueprints and developing the plan, raising the funds, doing a lot of the work with sweat equity. And they were out there raking and seeding and moving dirt and so forth when it was 100 degrees out, and probably too when it was 20 degrees out. But it's just amazing to me that we could do this, and it's volunteers, it's service from people that really care. And as I said yesterday, they took something, they took nothing and made it into something. And the something is beautiful. I don't think there's anybody, a town our size, I would say that has something as nice as that wasn't a publicly funded effort. So that, we're very proud of the way that worked out. The flyover was good. We had a couple World War II planes, and the pilots gave us a good show. That was John, I think his name is Finney or Finner, and then Leif Johnson, who's local, and he helped with the radio communications. So everything went well, and they promised to come back if we'll let them come, and they'll fly sometime in some event in the future. One of them has a B-25 bomber from World War II that he's restored, and he'd like to bring that too. So that's just a great thing for us, and it's just another feather in the cap of the people of Hermann. So that's fantastic. And then that rolls right into today, which is Veterans Day. And before I say anything else, I'd like to thank all the veterans that are here, and the ones that are watching, and all the ones that aren't, the ones that are here today, and the ones that are not here today, and the ones that committed themselves in terms of the ultimate sacrifice and all the others. We owe them a debt of gratitude, and we can never repay it. But the high school students did a fantastic job this morning, serving the veterans breakfast, and then put on a fantastic performance with music, and it was well done too. It always is. It's the 20th time they've done this, and it goes to show that we have young people that understand the significance and the value of Veterans Day. So that's basically what I wanted to say. And if anybody up here wants to say anything more about Veterans Day, please feel free. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Mark for his report.
I'd like to say, I just want to thank the Hermann people for supporting Memorial Park, a lot of sweat put that together, and it was really heartwarming to see so many people show up and support the effort. And the other thing, if you weren't there when things were going on, it was amazing how quiet it was. Everybody showed due respect, and I just want to say thank you to everybody.
And thank you, Bruce, for participating in that and all the others. Mark, do you have a report?
Sure.
this evening?
The city and the hospital are getting real close to the demolition of the clinic building on West 6th. We've spoken with the title company and asked them for a closing date. Once the city takes possession of the building, the demolition can begin. I will meet with FEMA on Wednesday for a recovery scoping meeting to discuss damages, identify required documents, and schedule site inspections and weekly follow-up meetings. Work continues on the airport grant and the water study engineering grant. And as everyone else, I want to personally thank all the people involved in the Veterans Parkway Memorial dedication on Sunday. The entire city should be proud of the parkway and the people who put in long hours to make it the wonderful centerpiece of our beautiful town. That's it.
We forgot to thank, or I forgot to thank, the street department for doing a wonderful job.
And the police.
Close, I'm getting to
I'm
that.
sorry.
And for what a great job that they did. And we had really zero problems with moving traffic around town. And at least we didn't have them. You might have had them. And then the Hermann Police Department did their usual great job of keeping everything, barricades and traffic moving correctly and taking care of everything. So the Hermann Police Department and the Street Department and Robbie Swords, seriously, he did his help very helpful. So that was a great thing. I forgot that, and I apologize. Okay, let's go back to the public hearing now that Dave's here, and we'll go back up to item 1, and then we can come back and take over a little bit.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and call this hearing to order at 7:10 on November 11 here at the City Hall Board of Alderman Chambers. And this is a hearing regarding a proposed ordinance to approve text amendments to the zoning code of the City of Hermann pertaining to medical marijuana uses as required by Article 14 of the Missouri Constitution. And we have a few exhibits here. Exhibit 1 is the affidavit of publication confirming that the notice of hearing was published in the paper. Exhibit 2 is a notice of public hearing that was published in the paper. Exhibit 3 is the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes from its meeting on October 24th, 2019, where this proposed ordinance was discussed by Planning and Zoning. And there was some discussion. They pretty much approved the ordinance as is, or as it was presented at the meeting. The one comment that they had, per Jeff Schmidt's recommendation, was that the distance that marijuana dispensaries be from churches and schools and properties of that nature would be 300 feet. The original draft had 700 feet. But that was really the only change they had. Everything else that you see, all the other language that you see in the ordinance is as was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then Exhibit 4 is the entire municipal code of the City of Hermann, Missouri. So Mayor Kerber, would you agree to accept these exhibits into the record?
I do.
All right, and then Trish, we have the ordinance and ordinances section? Yes, you do. So it's in the ordinances section under bill number 2019-51, and it doesn't appear that there are anyone here tonight to comment either in favor or opposed to this bill or the proposed ordinance. So, Mayor, I think it's okay if you and the alderman would like to discuss now.
Can you tell us where the 100 feet, 300 feet is now?
Yeah. It is on page 7, under section 3, towards the top, spacing requirement for medical marijuana uses. No medical marijuana use in any zoning district shall be located within 300 feet of any school, daycare, or church.
Okay, I don't know if you all have questions. I do, but I like to take yours first. If you have some questions and,
Did Jeff have a reason for lowering it from 700 to 300?
Was there some talk about the distance from the schools to this area with it being commercial?
There was some talk about that. There was some talk about just, he thought it was impractical if he had a radius of 700 feet, that would exclude a lot of commercial areas that, in his opinion, would be suitable for something like this. There was some discussion about how we have taverns or possibly pharmacies or other commercial establishments closer than 700
Well,
feet.
and I wondered about that because we do have a pharmacy closer than that, and if medical marijuana becomes legal, they would probably want to handle it, so you don't really want to cut them out.
Right.
But,
well, if it's 300, that's quite a distance difference from.
what is that, 300
700.
foot to the school property line or 300 feet to the school building?
Yeah, I believe.
To the building.
Okay, well then, that shouldn't be an issue on that.
Do you feel that it should be anything other number, 450 or?
No, I don't have a problem with 300 feet on that. This stuff needs to stay away from the kids.
Well, you're still on page 7, it's just the grammar. Maybe I'm wrong, but behind number 1 in section B, it says marijuana use facility, the distance between. It's in there twice.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a question, I'll just ask it, and this is really, I guess, dumb. But does this cover just dispensing of medical marijuana? Does it cover growing? What else is covered in here?
Well, it covers growing as well, and cultivating, and manufacturing marijuana products. And the gist of it is that the dispensing, or the dispensaries, would be allowed uses only in the commercial districts. And the growing or the manufacturing arm of the industry could only happen in the industrial districts.
Now, this purely just covers the dispensing, the 300 feet. What about the use of that marijuana once it's dispensed?
And there's nothing in here covering that.
Is that up to us to do? I mean, it's not sold within 300 feet of a school, but if somebody goes and sits on a bench right in front of the school and smokes something that's legally dispensed, that's a
Or
little different area there.
Or goes and uses it in the house that's right next door to the school.
Yes.
I don't think there's anything we can or should really do
Okay, that was
for that.
Because it's legal to do that. Okay,
I mean, somebody at school smells marijuana, they're gonna call that gentleman right back there, and he's gonna have to deal with it, so.
probably. Any other discussion of this? It's a long ordinance and it's complicated
And I think the mayor might have had one, I've had 2 phone calls in the last 6 months at the law office, one from another lawyer and another one was from a real estate agent, both of them just wanting to know if the city of Hermann had this yet. Because they had a client or they had somebody interested in buying property or who wanted to know what they could do or couldn't do in what zones, so it's on people's radars.
Oh, I think we need it.
Yeah, we need the ordinance, there's no
Yeah.
doubt about it. It sets parameters, and I think I need to reread it and make sure. I think we'll discuss it, we're gonna take a vote on it, if you're so inclined to make a motion. And then we'll bring it back in 2 weeks and have our second. It's complicated. It's just so different that all of a sudden this is okay. To me, that's just me, but it's so different than it was a year ago. But, that's the way things are.
Well, it's better to be proactive with it than wait.
Exactly, yep. Yeah, I'm glad we've got this, and this is the kind of a culmination, I guess, or distillation of some other cities' ordinances, so it's not something, a standalone for us, I believe, is that correct?
That's right.
So we're not groundbreaking anything here.
Does the chief see anything with enforcement?
Chief, you want to come up and tell us your opinion of it, or do you have a problem with this as written, or this law change? Is this going to create any problems that you can see?
No, I don't see anything with this law, the enforcement the law says.
Exactly, yeah.
Is the 300 feet sufficient for you from schools and everything?
Yeah, that should be fine.
Okay, well, if there isn't any other discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve this first read.
I have one more question.
Sure.
You look on page 11B, the last part of the italics, it says I-1 and 1-2 districts, should it be I-1 and I-2?
On page 11.
Page 11B, the very last end of that in the
Yeah,
parentheses.
Number 7?
That should be I-1 and I-2, not 1, 2.
Up here? Okay. I-1.
Because when I first saw it, I thought.
That's
so
industrial
R1,
1 and
R2?
industrial 2,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Yep, good eye.
Good job. Okay, anything else? Can I have a motion?
I will move it first read.
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. And
Motion's
our,
carried.
typically when we have these public hearings, we have Kim, the court reporter, or a court reporter here. We excused her tonight because of the weather, but I think she was still gonna go ahead and just type up a brief transcript of this using the recording. So that'll, unless anybody has anything else, that'll conclude the public hearing.
No, that's conclude that.
All right?
Thank you, Dave. Now we can move down to the ordinances, item 4.
Okay, on for second reading is bill number 2019-47. It'll be an ordinance to amend the City of Herman's drug and alcohol-free workplace policy.
And this is an update that we were asked to do, Trish, am I correct? Because we hadn't for a couple of years, and that's what generated this. Any discussion of this?
I move bill 2019-47, second read.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next.
Next on for second reading is bill number 2019-48, an ordinance to amend Herman Municipal Code Section 220.050 to indicate times for the placement and removal of refuse containers. And this has been revised per the comments made at the last meeting. It now says that containers shall not be put out before 6 a.m. the day next preceding the regularly scheduled collection day, and shall be removed no later than 6 p.m. the day following the regularly scheduled day. So if your day is Tuesday, you shouldn't put them out before 6 a.m. on Monday, and you should have them put away by 6 p.m. on Wednesday.
Okay. That's what we said. Do we have a motion or any further discussion or motion?
I I move that bill number 2019-48 be declared second read.
Second?
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried.
Next is bill number 2010-49 on for first reading. An ordinance calling general election for the year of 2020, setting the date and time thereof, specifying polling places, appointing judges of election, specifying officers to be elected, providing filing date for candidates, and providing for publication of notice of election and related provisions.
This is pretty standard, and then we do this every year. We need a motion.
Make a motion, bill number 2019-49 be approved.
I'll second.
We have a motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried.
Alright, next is bill number 2019-50. An ordinance prescribing the salary for the elected office of city collector and establishing the effective date thereof.
Any discussion of this?
I move bill number 2019-50 first read.
I'll second.
We have a motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried.
She earns every penny.
So actually, just to be clear for the public, it's not for her term. By law, elected officials can't get a raise during their term, so it's actually for the next term. And she'll be on that position, the collector's position will be on the April 7th election.
So it can't take effect until after
Yes.
the next election. Good, thanks for that. Somebody would have called. Okay. Next.
Next is 2019-51. We just did a first reading of that. That was a marijuana ordinance. And then after that, we have bill number 2019-52, which would be an ordinance to approve a state aviation trust fund project consultant agreement by and between the city of Hermann, Missouri and Burns and McDonnell Engineering Company, Inc.
Do you need to explain this?
If I need to, this is the agreement between the city and the engineers on the grant application for the airport improvements.
Any further discussion? Do we have a motion?
Make a motion 2019-52 be first read.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next resolution.
On to resolutions, or the resolution on for tonight is number 1273, which would be a resolution to authorize hiring Anita Ruga as the city's ordinance enforcement officer and to appoint her as deputy zoning inspector and deputy building inspector. We have provisions in the code that specify that the city administrator or zoning inspector and we, Regal, our building inspector, can have deputies or other people authorized under them to serve the same duties as they do. So I think it was contemplated that Anita would do that when she came into this job, so that's what this is for.
Okay, we've looked at the qualifications and written that. Do we want to discuss this? Do we have a motion?
It was posted publicly, just in case anybody's wondering. It was advertised like we would do for any other position.
Right.
I'm reading the code to 525.050. It states in there that you can, the police officers or whoever can be appointed to be a building inspector. How does a police officer know the building? I guess I'm just, how can you just say, okay, you're a building inspector without having a background in being a building inspector?
Well-
On load-bearing walls or whatever it
I
may
don't think
concern.
that's what the inspection, the job description says.
No, I'm just saying that part
Well,
of that
you can't.
ordinance.
You
is-
shouldn't. Yeah, I'm
Kinda
sure,
bothered-
I'm
kinda
sure
bothered
it's
me.
done somewhere, but that's the job description for this particular job that Anita applied for, specifically states that in the event of any type of building inspector code enforcement, then the building inspector would be called in to do that work. So if we want to know if the electrical wiring is proper, the building lead is going to have to come in and look at that. Anita isn't going to be able to make that judgment because she doesn't know that. And we don't want
I'm not just saying Anita, but I'm saying the way that's written. It
Right.
just
Or a
strikes me,
police officer.
Police officers or whatever, I just.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't either, so.
I think that that's there in the event you need somebody dispatched to a building immediately. If Lee Regal's in New Haven
Right.
and there's a windstorm or there's something and somebody needs to go and make an observation or keep public away from a building or something like that. And so then you have a hearing 6 weeks later here about whether it's a dangerous building or not, and you've got some lawyer for the building owner who says, well, that police officer can't testify as to the condition of the building because he's not the quote-unquote building inspector.
Okay.
This is just to cover a situation like that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion?
Well, since I've been an alderman, I've probably been asked 100 times, whenever anything comes up in this area, is, well, who's supposed to be looking at that? That's what this is. I move to approve the resolution.
We have a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah. Aye.
Motion's carried. Okay. We'll move on then to old business. I talked today with Melissa Lansing of the Chamber of Commerce, and she is going to present her financial report that she wants to forward to us, to their board Thursday morning, so that they approve, and I think that's a good thing. We want the board to approve her releasing the information to us. And so I think that that's on the way, and that satisfies me anyway, that something's going on there. Is there any other discussion of that, or can I move on?
Actually, I would like to. Actually, it covers that and the funding of the Welcome Center and something else we've been working on. The last meeting I was asked a question, I answered it to the best of my ability. It upset some people, I apologized. Well, from controversy can come some opportunity. Alderman Shermer's been working on relieving a little pressure on the general fund by moving the tourism director's salary to the tourism fund. Now, while I am in favor of that in principle, in reality, I do not want to cut the tourism budget by that amount of money. The tourism budget does a lot of good for the town. It brings people here. I hate to see that budget get cut by any amount. I would like to actually see it increased. Through the same time period, the chamber has asked us for help with the Welcome Center. There again, in principle, I'm certainly not against it, but where would we get the money to do so? That is tourism, I mean, just pure and simple tourism. That money would have to come from the tourism fund, and there again, it would cut the money for tourism. I just can't see doing that. Now, there is a way this can work. A few years back, we attempted to increase the tourism tax from 3 to 5%. We got fought by that. I'll say the usual suspects. There's always people that seem to complain about everything, but we were fought. And through misinformation and just people being against it, it didn't pass. There was some confusion in town. The people in Hermann actually thought that they were going to end up paying part of that tax, and that is simply not the case. It is paid simply by tourist people that come here to stay. This can work. I mean, it really can work. It will require our tourism department, our tourism board, and the Chamber of Commerce to get on board with it and get this passed. This money would go strictly to our tourism fund. If that were to pass, there would be money in there. Now, there again, there's a few things that have to happen to this. We need this information from the chamber and what it costs to run that tourism center. We have to have that before we really could proceed with this any further. But if we get that, and it seems doable, the money from this can allow the city to take over the tourism center. It would not be a partnership. Our tourism department would have to take it over in order to fund it. Also, this would allow the tourism fund to have the money to absorb the tourism director's salary and relieve that pressure on the general fund. And there would still be money left over to help with the tourism budget. I mean, the way I've looked at it, I mean, you never know from year to year how many people are gonna show up, how many people are gonna stay. It would have no adverse effect on the people that come here to town. Quite the contrary, more money in the tourism budget would bring more people to town and it would help with it. I have, in the last few years, my wife and I have traveled somewhat extensively. I've stayed pretty much all over the country. Not one time have I ever refused to stay in a room because the tourism tax was a couple dollars higher in one place than it was somewhere else. That problem just absolutely does not exist. That argument cannot plausibly be made. So if we were to decrease this, we have an election coming up in April. That would be the time to put it on the ballot, if we can get the other organizations behind it. If they're not behind it, I'm not gonna beat my head against a rock again. But, I mean, it should be put at the tourism board, ask for their opinions on it, send it to the Chamber of Commerce, see if they're willing to get behind it. And if we can do that, we can get this on there and these problems would be solved. The money would be there. I've talked with our tourism director, she is in favor of it. If the conditions can be met. I can't see a downside to trying it again, but the other people have to get on board, the people that will benefit by it. So that is my proposal for your all's consideration. We don't even have to discuss it tonight. Take time to think about it. We can discuss it in a meeting or two.
Well, how much time do you have?
I don't know, Tricia.
That was my first question.
January 28th.
January 28th, so.
Well, the
we
chamber
don't-
should be contacted and the tourism board should be
And
asked.
we have broached that subject. I think that the information, they know about it. Now, I was gonna say something that, just to clarify, our tourism, it's called a lodging tax, it's not a tourism tax, it's a lodging tax. We passed this in 2005, I believe, as a city. The city has to vote on it. The money can only be used to promote tourism and, pay the salary of the director, but, and it's limited strictly to lodging. We're a class 4 city. We don't have the ability to add restaurants and bars and things on this. It's not part of the state statute. We can't do it. If we were a bigger city, Washington, or we fell under the Convention and Visitors Bureau statute, we probably could do some other things, but we don't, and it's not possible unless they change the state law. And I don't think we're holding out that that's gonna happen by April. So, it won't happen by April. So anyway, so that's it. It's a tax paid by tourists who stay in our lodging facilities here. It's not a sales tax in terms of on bars, liquor, anything like that. So just to make sure people realize what we're talking about. And it's presently 3%. It can go as high as 5%. 1%, I think 2% would bring in around 180 or 90,000. Am I close?
Correct.
Okay. And so that would be enough for the tourism director. We think probably for the Welcome Center, which is a very good thing to have. People need to have that. We need to have it. We need to give them information and so forth, and that's what that's for. And to have a little bit left over. The first thing when we get the information Thursday or Friday, whenever we get it, we'll have the second piece. The first piece was January 28th. The second piece is how much the Welcome Center costs to operate, and then we get some numbers to back it up. So that's kind of the back information.
And the other thing you gotta remember, we were only gonna have 2 more meetings, right, before the end of the year? Because we only have 1 meeting in December.
But we could do it in January.
I mean, you might have to call a special meeting.
Right, and we would for something like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Gonna run out of
Does
time.
anyone here see this as a bad idea?
Well, one thing I want everybody to think about is we've been challenged to watch our general budget to come up with money by moving the bed tax to the tourism tax, I forgot what you called it there.
2%.
That's gonna open up the general fund, which is the taxpayers' dollars.
Right,
So as a taxpayer, you don't pay anything on this. Actually, you're gonna come up and make a gain in your money that we're not spending right now. So we'll have.
explain that again, because I understand exactly what you're saying, but basically now, we're paying the tourism director's salary from the general fund, which is where we pay for streets and roads and other things
Correct.
like that. And if this would pass, this concept, then that would free that money up to stay in the general fund.
And that's
And
the
the
point.
tourism director would still be paid the same amount, but it would come from the increased amount of the tourism and lodging tax. And then, so would it be possible to pay for the welcome center out of that additional amount, and maybe have a little left over, so.
So it's a win-win for the voters of the city of Hermann.
I just wanted everybody to understand, because there is confusion, and I, hopefully that's straightened out. Okay? This doesn't require us to actually vote or do anything. We're still gathering information, we're trying to help, we want to be proactive, and we want to help tourism and so forth, so. Okay, CTAL Homeowners Association input. I'd ask Frank Tennant, who's the president of the Homeowners Association at CTAL. Some residents want lower speed limits, some don't want lower speed limits, some want 20 miles an hour, some want 25, some want 15, I guess, I think so. And I said, well, can you poll everybody and tell me a number? You know, we don't want to do it if half want it and half don't want it, so kind of tell us what they want. And he basically said, some want, you know, tomato and some want tomato, and there's no real decision that's one way or the other. And basically I said, well, when you get a decision, you can tell us, but until that time, if you can't tell what they want, then I don't know how we could. So that's where that stands right now. The AT&T cell tower is something that, I don't know which way to turn here, that I would really like to see. Where are we on that? What's going on with that?
I received plans from the builder, the contractor last week. And they're getting their deposits made, I think. Is that correct, Carol?
I have to send an invoice and an address, or an account number, sorry, and then he can issue me the deposit for the utilities, yes.
I don't know.
Then what do we do?
I guess Lee needs to review the plans and put his approval on those, and then they should be, once they pay if they paid for the plans, they sent us the proper number of sets, they get their account number and their deposit, then they should be ready to begin, I would think.
And we will, let's ask Lee very kindly to not do this, yes.
Okay.
As much as possible, because we need the cell tower badly. We needed it 2 months ago, 3 months ago, but tomorrow is better than 3 months down the road. So let's get that done as quick as we can.
Sure.
Okay, any other information or any questions about either of those things? If not, I'll move to new business.
I have old business.
Okay.
And you know, a year and a half ago, I brought up, I guess, my feelings that there was a lack of communication, that we, the aldermen, sometimes aren't privy of what's really going on with things. And I think it helped for a while, but I think that situation is again. I mean, there's so many things. I know different aldermen, older women are working on different projects and that. I guess the part that bothers me is some of those projects, we don't have any idea about what's going on with them until it's thrown in front of us at a meeting. And I just feel that there should be more open dialogue between us, either at a meeting or workshop or something on these major products. The other thing that bothers me is there's things that go on between the mayor and the attorney that I know sometimes maybe we shouldn't be involved, but it brought to my attention about this building this factory building, and the push for us to do that, to take charge of that, or I just want to make a point that if we take charge of that, with that hazardous waste that's in there, we have no idea how much money it will cost to abate that. I mean, I've got a little bit of background in that, we don't know what kind of chemicals are in there. It could cost $5,000, it could cost $300,000. And if we take charge of that building, we're responsible for that. And I would like to see us be informed more of what's going on. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, with regard to the building, I think we did discuss that to a certain amount. And I think some information was passed around regarding from the attorney to Mr. Polite. But basically, we don't know what's in the building, and we're certainly not going to take any kind of ownership of anything that we think could even possibly have contaminants or any kind of stuff like that in it. We would never do that, and I think we talked about that. And really, that would be silly for us to do that. The letter said, we looked at the letter that came to Mr. Brigham from DNR, and it said there was a can of Maxwell House coffee, can of something, and a a bucket of something else, and a little bottle of something else, but they didn't ever try to find out what it was. And we need to know what it is. I think the attorney needs to know what it is before Mr. Brigham moves that equipment around. But that's on him. If he moves it around and disturbs this stuff, then that's on him. We're not going to do anything until we get a clean bill of health from the DNR. And that's the way it is. So, I don't know, it's hard to funnel or to send that information around because Dave gets a tremendous amount of information from the other attorneys and people. If you want to see copies of all of it, I don't know, we'll do it.
Well,
If that's what you want.
You know,
I think we get into a problem because now we open up books loads of information that is meaningless really, and it's never going to amount to anything because we're not going to act on it. It's just information that's sending him, basically it's a stall, but it's effective because we're not going to get into it. We're not moving anything around. We're not bulldozing anything until we know that the coast is clear. There's nothing there.
but we've already given them the 30-day notice.
Mm-hmm.
And if I understand the way that was written, that means they didn't do anything in that 30 days, so that.
So we're free to pounce anytime.
Well, that's what I'm saying, so does that is that liability after that 30 days change from him to us? I mean, I don't know, I'm just asking, that's why.
If it did, we wouldn't have done it. If it did become our problem at the end of 30 days, we would never have done that because we're not going to do that. You said 300,000, it could be $30 million.
Well, because we don't know what's in there.
The Superfund has incredible amounts of penalties and so forth. So
Okay.
well, no, I mean, trust me on that. We're not going to do that. And there's the problem that we have, since we're talking about this, is he wants to move the equipment, which is on the second floor, and third floor, I guess it's got 3 floors, the second floor anyway, and take it to auction and auction it off. Now, when he moves that stuff around, they're probably gonna disturb these little cans of stuff that's sitting around and so forth, which seems insignificant, but they could be cans that were taken from a 55-gallon drum or something. We don't know what they are. So I think they need to be very careful. But the second thing is, we need to ask them, since we have filed a 30-day notice, we need to ask DNR to go back in there if we can and examine those cans and find out what is actually in there. It might be water. It could be there to catch rain, roof leaks. We don't know. But because we don't know, we can't do anything until we find out. And we are gonna do that. We're not reactionary.
Well, if that building operated under any type of OSHA standards, there's a book there someplace that says what's in that building. What do you call that book, Mark?
Hazmat.
Hazmat, yeah.
Yeah,
That should list every hazardous chemical.
If he
in there.
was conforming to that.
right. And
I mean,
maybe,
you know, that doesn't mean, just because that's a requirement, doesn't mean he's been doing that for the last 15 years that he's been working. You understand what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I understand what you're saying, but OSHA's usually a little more dogged than that.
but you know, he hasn't been operating for a few years. And what happened at the end of that, I think it says in the letter that he's a non-conforming, non-operating entity, or whatever their classification is.
That
So,
book should still be there.
well,
Non-conforming hazardous material producer.
that's it, thank you. And so, we need to go back and get DNR to,
Why
Is
did
it-
DNR test it in the first place?
I have no idea.
Was it because they were afraid to
Yeah.
go in the building?
No, they couldn't get into one of the parts of it, which we need to get them in there. And you know, it doesn't do any good for us to wait 3 more months to do something we could do tomorrow. So we need to move on, but not disturb stuff, but paperwork to help us get a declaration of that this is safe, the material's safe. If we can get it, otherwise, we have a big problem sitting in the middle of Hermann. If
I
that-
understand that, that's why,
And,
that's why I was concerned after I got some information out of it, you know. I
Well-
just want to make sure that our i's are dotted and our t's are crossed, that we don't make a mistake. I'm
Well, I
sure
think-
Dave's on top of
Over
it.
the wrong barrel, we'll have a mess.
I don't think we ought to be in there right now until we know, you know, and so on. But anyway, that's,
But that's just why, like I said, you know, just communication, I just think it, maybe it's just me, I just feel that I don't know things when I think I should. So maybe it's just a
Well,
personal thing, I don't know.
we'll
I don't know
solve
how everybody else feels, but.
I think we can always improve communication. But I think in this particular case, there's been,
Okay, I'll rest my case.
okay.
It's,
Any other old business?
you know, one thing I want to bring up is, worked on the nuisances on the Bowles Trailer Park. 6th and Gathey, there was some nuisances there. Part of it has been cleaned up.
They are abated.
And now, I don't know, did everybody, I'd sent some pictures to Dave and Tricia and the mayor and Mark and David of the actual signs that are on the trailers, where it shows the dates and then placement, and he has added another one to that list that has been stickered. But I do want to let you guys know he did clean that part at 6th and Gathey, catty corner from the senior citizens.
Yeah,
house.
that looks much better.
There is a lot of old deck still there that needs to be picked up, but there is something starting to happen.
Yeah, and I talked with Nick Godad last week about something else completely, about the Muskrat building. And while I had him there, I asked him about how they were doing, and I knew that was looking better. And he said they're moving on. They have a couple people that have asked for a few weeks, and a couple that have asked for a month or two. But they're not falling asleep on it. They're still after the people to move out. And it's much better for us to allow them, and we should allow them, to do this their way, as long as we see progress to get it, because it's just not acceptable as is, because it's just an eyesore. So-
There's a lot more empty pads there than there
Yeah.
were a couple months ago.
With some of those trailers that were marked uninhabitable have been there for 2 years.
And Nick thinks that he's gonna, Mr. Bowler's gonna move them. He wants to use it for something. With Mark and I were in there, he doesn't throw things away. and he has some use on his farm for some of this stuff, although Nick doesn't know exactly what it is, but he's sure that he does have a use for it, and he's gonna move some of this himself. So,
Mr. Bowl came in, I think it was later that same day or the next day, and he explained that he has sent everything that he needs to the Department of Revenue to get the titles for these mobile homes so that he can properly take them and get rid of them. I think he's frustrated with the speed of the state government, but he said he has done everything he can do to get those titles, so I guess that's what he's waiting on.
that's what he's waiting on. And I think he's moving on it, so, and that's what's the way it should be. So we want him he wants to redevelop that into homes, and that's a good thing for Herman. And so, hopefully it'll happen fairly quickly. And by fairly quickly, I don't mean in like a week.
I understand.
Okay. It's still happening.
So he's implying government bureaucracy moves at kind of the speed of smell?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think so. Okay, any other old business? Let's go to new business, and I have one thing on new business, and I'll bring it up. I have 2 people have complained to me about dumpster setbacks. And Dave looked it up, and I can't remember the city code numbers, but basically, R1, R2, and R3 have different setbacks for side yards, backyards, and front yards. And then if it's in an alley, if the backyard abuts an alley. So if you have and it's 5, the minimum, I believe, side yard is 5 feet. So that's in R1 and 2, but you can't put it on the line, you can't put it across the line, and basically, you can't put it up into the alley or out onto the street. So it's part of our ordinance already, and so we really, like I said, I only know of 2. I'm sure there's a couple other ones, but that will eliminate some of the problems and complaints we have if we just send a letter and point out. They might not even know that.
Well, I would think the place to start would be the Tri-County, to make sure that their boys are setting those dumpsters where they're supposed.
Yeah.
The guys on the truck may not know that,
I'm
but that
pretty
dumpster has to be
I'm
set
pretty sure
back.
they
so-
know.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a good place to take a copy, and it's pretty easy to understand if you see the chart.
Yeah.
But, I'll go talk to Dennis and show it to him. He's pretty reasonable.
I mean, if they set it down and somebody moves it to a different spot, then that becomes our problem.
Those are hard to move.
Oh, they can be moved. When
Well,
they're
I'm
empty,
sure
they
they
don't
can.
roll that hard.
Yeah, okay. I wouldn't move on it. You might. Okay, any other new business? Do we have any new business?
I'd like to remind everybody that the city will be picking up leaves twice a week. Don't blow them out in the street. Bag your leaves and we'll pick them up and take care of them.
And we have a schedule published.
Yeah, I'm not
Just-
sure the days. Do you know the days?
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Tuesdays and
Tuesdays.
Thursdays.
And if we put it out, I mean,
When you started, I thought you were gonna say
November,
Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself.
but we do,
Out by 7 a.m.
Third Street.
yeah.
What's Third Street? Veterans Memorial, it leaves are out to one lane.
Now, I had another question since we're talking about leaves. Is it legal to burn leaves in the street?
Yes.
In the street?
We've always allowed it.
Okay.
In
What
the
about-
gutter, you mean? Like on the gutters that into the streets?
I do it every year.
So then that's okay.
I'm not gonna tell a citizen they cut off
Do
their
we
leaves
have a
as long as they do it safely.
Well, do it safely, that's good. I'm glad
Well,
you
there's a
said-
negligent burning deal in that book. I've seen this came up in the past. I think Dave pointed it out. You're not supposed to light something on fire and leave. You're supposed to stay there with it. Isn't that
And
correct? Okay,
if you have to leave, then you have to put it out.
that's correct.
And I believe we had a situation where it came back, and I can't talk, because when I was a kid, I set my dad's car on fire. I backed it over, I thought it was out, looked out, wasn't smoking, but guess what? I put the car over it, and that was that. I watched it burn up, and that, that wasn't the only hot thing around after that situation. So I know if they can come back. and they come back and that's, so anyway, it's called, what is it called?
Negligent burning, I believe, isn't that correct, Dan?
Okay, that's for me, I just wondered. Okay, Dave, can you tell us about the progress or lack thereof on negotiating with Central Electric on the 69 lines?
There really isn't any progress. I just clarified in the last week or two exactly what we wanted to do, and the next step, yes, would be, for our conversation, would be to contact the attorney for Central and talk about how they want to document the taking over of that 69 kV line and making sure we don't have any maintenance responsibilities for it.
To kind of bring for all the people watching, and maybe the aldermen, some of them have forgotten because this was a couple years ago, Jesse doesn't have the ability to set these poles or really maintain these poles. They're just too big. We don't have the equipment. Central Electric does have the equipment, and our idea was to give the poles to them. That way they would have to maintain them and fix them and so forth. And we wanted to have a space set aside that we could use on the poles. And I believe we had a couple of them go over and it cost a lot of money.
It was over $50,000.
Yeah.
It was 80,000.
80,000, and we don't want that to happen anymore. So, but at the time, we were trying to get a crossing for fiber optic across where Central Electric had it down the river crossing by the industrial park, and we were trading them, the fiber optic crossing for these 69 poles. And so we held off on it for a while, but now that's not,
We don't need that.
we don't need it. We got what we want, we've got our fiber optic, and everything is moving forward on that. So we need to get this potential liability off of our books, and that's what we're talking about. We already had discussions with these same lawyers about this swap, so Dave can check his notes, go back and contact them and see what it is. And when in doubt, to also check with Jesse to make sure that space that he needs, we know what that is. So that's what that is, I think, and Dave's on it, so. Any other new business? We will Susan, do you want to talk about your guest house ordinance, or that is another thing that's almost finished. The alderman will get a copy of that, I think, probably in a week, and we'll discuss it at the next meeting for us. It won't be an open hearing, but that will then come the first week in December. But I want to get it in your hands so you guys can see what it is, and we can talk about it. And so, anyway, that's coming, so I'm going to tell you about that, so you'll have that. And other than that, we don't have any citizen comments, so.
No, Carol may want to talk. No.
Chief, do you want to, now's your chance. Yeah. Okay. We should go to the motions then. What about the minutes? What are we going to do for those?
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion's made and seconded to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Invoices for payment.
Make a motion to pay the bill.
Second.
Motion's made to pay the bills and duly seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Dental insurance renewal. Trish, what is that?
Our annual renewal came in at exactly the same increase as last year, which is only 3.5%, and we had budgeted for even more than that. It's a total increase to the city of $533 for the entire year. So,
For everybody. Wow.
Cool.
Let's approve that before they change their mind. Can I get a motion to approve? Oh, we don't need it. Yeah, we do.
Move to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we don't get that. Conditional use permit renewal, B&R LLC, Doxy Slush, Nicholas Renfro, liquor sales for outdoor consumption at 222 East First Street. Before we get into that, are we still talking with them about a suitable container for carryouts?
Distinguishing between
Yes.
alcohol-related and non-alcohol.
Exactly. We had a meeting on that here at City Hall, and,
I have heard no more from them.
okay, and they were going, we left that with, they had brought us a container that they wanted to, a winery, for instance, has a permit number and a tag and some seals and stuff on the bottom they sell. Doxy Slush wants to be able to do that. Other places do that, but they haven't come up with a way of, since they don't manufacture alcohol, they don't have a way of monitoring it. And they said they had one, but it didn't look very feasible. So they've gone away to attend some meetings and check with the state, and then they're gonna come back to us. So that's what that's about. It's not about this. So this conditional use permit, just FYI, that's what we're doing. So what do you wanna do on this? Do we have any discussion?
Well, it's a conditional use permit. I mean, if they violate it, we can pull it. So,
And is this one that, this is an alcohol, so it's not a guest house, so we can just approve this, okay?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
second.
A motion's made and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's, you want, what did I,
No,
it's okay?
I was just slow to get the second out.
You can have a second. I don't want.
Maybe we can change that. Okay, so that's what we had, there's no closed session, yes.
To congratulate the Bearcats for their win.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We should have, they had a tremendous weekend the last few weeks. The football team was in the district playoffs, and of course, the cross-country team came in 4th or 5th in the state. It's the highest finish ever for that, and they had some of the young men did so well. And then, the girls, we're getting used to this, but the ladies won the state championship again. I think it's the 15th state championship they've won. And in district play, they've only lost 2 matches in 17 years. 2 matches, not 2, that's it.
And it's
So-
to congratulate the new coach this year.
Yeah,
also.
Phil,
He's
Landolt.
been assistant, but
And he's been the assistant for years, and what a way to start. So, I would say, and I understand, both cross-country and volleyball are young, they'll have most of these players back. So I think all these other teams need to check their schedule and find out when they have to play Hermann, because that's the one I'd want to know if I were them. So congratulations to them. I'm sure everybody here shares that. It's pretty exciting, really. So congratulations, Bearcats, ladies and gentlemen. So, okay, thanks, Bruce. Anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Second, somewhere?
Second?
There. You gotta kick it in with.
You gotta be quick.
Aye.
All in favor, say aye. We're adjourned.
Dave, did Borgia win something?
Yeah, I think
Yeah, but we're not,
We have family though.
but the girls stayed for Borges' game to
I was
support
just gonna say
them.
that.
Yes, they
And
did.
because Borges supported them while they were playing,
well, that's great.
yeah, so they
Things
stayed.
are a lot friendlier now than they were 30 years ago.
Oh, boy. It got ugly there for a while.
Thought that was pretty nice. I was talking to one of the young
Yeah.
ladies. She said, well, we could have came home, but we wanted to stay. And
I
support
thought it
them."
was Hermann. What color is Borgia? Are they blue too?
Blue and yellow.
No.
There's
Dave,
some-
you know
I
why
thought it
it's
was
got
Hermann.
purported?
We-
And they